And you know what else fills me with joy? The idea that someone can insert themselves into the presidential race and raise all sorts of questions, demand answers, and hopefully change the tone of the entire election. Someone who's got that potential is former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson. Governor Johnson joins us here on KFI. How are you, Gary?
Kennedy, I am great, and it's great being on with you. I don't know if you realize that I am on the ballot in all 50 states. I mean,
that was one of my first questions because I know that it has been a challenge in Oklahoma and Tennessee.
And did you see that we're in Oklahoma? I am on the ballot as the Americans' elect candidate, which is an absolute coup.
And what is the difference between being an Americans' elect candidate and a Libertarian candidate? Because Governor Gary Johnson is running for president on the Libertarian ticket. He was originally running as a Republican, but because, he's got smart ideas and he's not part of the establishment, he was not allowed into the debates, which is a crime in this electoral cycle, rather. And he was also a very successful governor in New Mexico, where he cut the state deficit, he balanced budgets, he got people working, and he was very popular and reelected. So now you're running as a Libertarian, but what does it mean to run as an American elect? What is the name exactly?
Well, the Americans' elect candidate, the important part here is that I am on the ballot in all 50 states, including Oklahoma, and these votes accrue to me, not the party. So the fact is that I will be on the ballot in all 50 states. Of all the third parties, I want to say Green Party is going to do next best, but I have understood that they will be on the ballot in 30 states as opposed to 50. So, I'm the only candidate that doesn't want to bomb Iran. I'm the only candidate that wants to get out of Afghanistan tomorrow, bring the troops home. I do believe in marriage equality. I think it's a constitutionally guaranteed right. I want to end the drug wars. I would have never signed the National Defense Authorization Act allowing for you and I to be arrested and detained as U.S. citizens without being charged. I would like to repeal the Patriot Act. I am promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013, believing that if we don't balance the budget, we're going to find ourselves in the midst of a monetary collapse. And lastly, I'm the only candidate advocating abolishing the IRS, income tax, and corporate tax, replacing it in this case with one federal consumption tax. I am embracing the fair tax. I think it really reboots the American economy.
And I want to talk to you about the fair tax specifically. Now, please explain what that is. But can we hold you over for a little bit so we can talk to you about that?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Governor Gary Johnson is with us, former governor of New Mexico. He's running for president as a Libertarian. And if these ideas were espoused by either Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, you would fall in love with them, and you would probably vote for them today 10 times if you could. So we'll talk more with Governor Johnson in just a moment on the Bill Carroll Show. It's Kennedy, and on KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk radio. KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk radio. Hopefully you've heard of him by now. Governor Gary Johnson, former governor of New Mexico. He's running for president. He's got real solutions. He can get this country back on track. I believe you can, Governor Johnson. I believe you. I hope everybody else does.
Well, there are big differences. And speaking with a broad brushstroke, I think the majority of Americans are fiscally responsible and socially accepting. I'm in that category. How about a candidate, the Libertarian candidate for president, who embodies the best of what the two parties are supposed to be about? Democrats are supposed to be good on civil liberties. You know what? Libertarians are better. Republicans are supposed to be good on dollars and cents. Libertarians are better. So I happen to think I'm the embodiment of both of those, at least when it comes to Obama and Romney.
And, I think you're absolutely right. I think that most people, even if they don't self-identify as libertarian, they are, because people want to be in charge of their own money. People want balanced budgets. They want fiscal responsibility. But at the same time, at least a lot of people I know, and I'm talking about people with kids, people with families, people of faith, they are still socially accepting. And, it's a live and let live world. At least it should be. So why aren't more people libertarian?
Well, that's the crux. That's the crux of the whole campaign. And I think that most people are. They just don't know it. And then let me also point out something that is a fact. A lot more people describe themselves as libertarian than actually vote libertarian. So I'm asking everybody, just this one election, vote libertarian this one time. Give me a chance here. And if I can't make a difference, we can always go back to the tyranny of the two-party system. Look, we have a growing police state in this country. We continue to militarily intervene in other countries' affairs. The unintended consequence of that is that we have hundreds of millions of enemies that we wouldn't have had but for our military interventions. And then let's balance the federal checkbook. Let's adopt a tax system that's better, more fair. Imagine our lives not having to comply with the IRS because the IRS wouldn't exist.
Okay, and let me ask you this. How do you abolish the IRS? Is that something that you could do by executive order as president? Because I know Ron Paul has talked about abolishing certain federal agencies, and you've talked about the same thing. I don't know if you've talked about them in the same specifics, but you just said that you want to get rid of the IRS. How do you do that? Technically, how do you do that?
Well, that does require congressional authorization. No, you can't do that administratively, but keep in mind, if I'm elected president of the United States, what are the American people shouting at Congress? I think they're shouting at Congress, look, we want meaningful drug reform. We want to legalize marijuana. We don't want to militarily intervene anymore. We would like to see the fair tax implemented, meaning we want to see the IRS abolished. We want to balance the federal checkbook. We accept marriage equality. Let's have it. Come on.
And what is the fair tax? I mean, explain what the fair tax is for people who are unfamiliar, who are frustrated with the current tax system.
Well, so first of all, I am advocating eliminating income tax, corporate tax, IRS, and replacing it with one federal consumption tax. In this case, I am embracing the fair tax. It is a proposal that's before Congress, several million followers. It is a 23% consumption tax that takes the place of all existing tax. Now, before anybody falls off their chair, this ends up to be cost neutral over a very short amount of time. Let me use a can of Coke as an example. Can of Coke sells for $1. Well, in that buck is 23% embedded tax, non-transparent. It's the taxes that Coke has had to absorb, and now they're selling it in that can of Coke. You implement the fair tax, all of that embedded, non-transparent tax bleeds itself out. Coke now sells the can of Coke for 80 cents as opposed to a dollar. They make the same amount of profit. It ends up being cost neutral. And for anybody that thinks, well, Coke will just keep their price at $1, look, we do live in a free market economy. It is competitive, with the exception of health care, but it is competitive. They will sell it for 80 cents. So it's really the answer when it comes to American exports. When you bleed out 23% worth of taxes on all goods and services that we're selling to other countries, that makes them cost 23% less. It's really the answer when it comes to American jobs, because in a zero corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector doesn't create tens of millions of jobs, what does it take to do that? And I see American manufacturing jobs flocking back to the United States, given a zero corporate tax rate environment. And there are issues. Nothing is perfect. There are issues with a consumption tax, but I think the fair tax has really dotted the I's and crossed the T's on a lot of the issues, and I embrace it, and I think that it's a great starting point for the discussion of getting rid of the IRS and income tax and corporate tax.
Let me ask you this about bringing manufacturing back to the United States. My husband's in manufacturing. I would love to see it. I would love to see more support for American manufacturing, but it seems like if you have a union stranglehold on manufacturing, it makes it more difficult because oftentimes union labor prices itself out of the market. What is your stance on private manufacturing unions?
Well, private manufacturing, whether it be union or non-union, there are some private manufacturers that compete with union labor. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, Kennedy. I grew a one-man handyman business, me, to 1,000 employees. I was in merit shop. I could not accept union labor where I had two workers, both from the union, one, the best worker that I have ever seen, the other, the worst worker I've ever seen. I want to be able to reward the best. I want to be able to get rid of the worst. In a union arrangement, I have to accept and pay both of them equally. I find that unworkable.
All right, and let me ask you about Ron Paul's supporters, because they are so avid, they are so vocal, they are so upset with how they see Dr. Paul's treatment in this presidential cycle. How do you encourage them to get on board with you, and how has that process gone?
Well, Dr. Paul's candidacy is going to officially come to an end here in a couple of weeks. At the heart of Ron Paul's support are people with brains. People with brains, given a choice between Obama, Romney, and myself, Gary Johnson, I don't see the choice myself. Meaning, I don't see any question as to how that vote comes down. So I am counting on Ron Paul's supporters voting their conscience, and if that actually happens, you know what? I'm on the debate stage, and there's the possibility of actually winning in this race.
Well, I would like to see you at least get some matching funds so you could go out and spread your message so people can see that there is a serious candidate out there, so at least you can raise the bar of the discussion. And, you know, were you happy to see Paul Ryan chosen as Mitt Romney's running mate because of the Medicare discussion?
Well, sure. I mean, there are some positives, but the positives have to do with perception. There's a perception that Paul Ryan is a fiscal hawk. The reality is that he's going to balance the budget in 30 years. Look, he voted to support the National Defense Authorization Act. He has voted for TARP. He's voted for the bailout. The perception that we need to reform Medicare, absolutely. The reality, though, is something other. I am proposing a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013, not the year 2043. We need to address these issues now, and with Paul Ryan's nomination, I think there's a heightened awareness that these are important issues. With a little bit of focus, well, really, if Paul Ryan is the boldest choice, we need another choice.
All right, and Gary Johnson, Governor Gary Johnson, former governor of New Mexico, you feel you are that choice. Where can people go? What is your website?
Gary Johnson 2012. And Kennedy, have you seen the website isidewith.com?
No, but I will check it out.
Check it out. You get online, you fill out 36 questions, and then at the end you press a button. It only takes 5 minutes. It pairs you up with the presidential candidate most in line with your views. 1.4 million people have taken this test. We have nothing to do with it. I am the next president of the United States based on the 1.4 million people who have taken this. isidewith.com. Everybody listening owes it to themselves to just get online and fill out this questionnaire. All
right. Well, we'll put your website on the KFI page as well as isidewith.com. Governor Johnson, thank you very much for taking the time.
Kennedy, thank you very much. We'll talk to you later.